what comes in your mind when we talk about the grammar in OET writing? The first of all, let's say to save the time, I'll answer my question myself. Like in the grammar, we have three major things: tenses, let's say sentences, and parts of speech, right? So you can see over here that how we can use the tenses, how can we use the sentences, and how we can use the parts of speech appropriately in OET writing. So as a matter of fact, plus point about the OET writing is that you can use the minimum grammar, I would say, although we have to be dense in the grammar. But with reference to any other exam, we can say that we will use the minimum grammar. But how we can say like that, I'll explain it to you in a while. So let's start with tenses. As you can see, tenses mean that for any event to describe in time, we need tense, right? When that event happened and how this event had happened, we need time for that. So most of the time in OET writing, I would write it down the most common tense. The most common tense, okay, is your simple form of past tense, which we can say past indefinite. So you can see the rule is to use the second form, and if you use the helping verb like did, so you use first form with that. Anyhow, this is a simple rule. So most of the time, your whole letter, apart from the introduction and the conclusion part, or maybe we can write it down in the simple past. But as you can see, there are events. So we have such events that may have started in past, like 2002, and still continue in 2022. It's not finished, right? It still continue. So we need to see that it's basically your present perfect continuous tense. For example is patient was diagnosed with diabetes in 2002 and is still suffering from that. In 2002, we can say he has been suffering from diabetes mellitus. I will write in short form, but you have to write in full with diabetes D small when you are writing in this form. Anyhow, so he has been suffering from diabetes mellitus since 2002. The alternative form or the other form of the same sentence is he has had diabetes mellitus since, let's say, 2002. Now both tenses are right and sentences are also right. Anyhow, so basically, if you can see, the another form of the tense that is being majorly used is the present perfect continuous tense. Now, the third most widely used tense is the present perfect form, that is the close form of close to the present perfect continuous. So, example is something started maybe, let's say, in 2002 and it just finished in time, recent history. So, we can use present perfect tense. Let's say in second last visit of your letter, patient was having severe pain. Let's say you have given painkiller in the last visit, and he told you in this state this pain improved. These are the case notes. Let's say so we write down this case in this case and this history together. Let's say today his pain has improved after he has taken painkiller. So you can say that these are the example of present perfect tense. So specifically, as to make it more simple and clear, let's say this is your introduction. Which tense we use in the introduction, we'll discuss later on. This is the body. Which tense we use in the body, let's say most of the time we'll discuss later on, but mostly it's past form of the tense. Mostly. But we can categorize the body. So we'll discuss later on. Anyhow. And this is your, let's say, in the body, basically, the last part is your today visit. So the present perfect form is being used in today visit. Why? Because from today, this event, even it's 1 day before, was the past tense. So if something started from this visit and it still continue over here, right? If something started from this visit and it still continue, or it's improved. Let's say his pain has worsened, his pain has improved. Let's say in this case, you can see that now we can use the present perfect tense. Okay, and rest of the body. Let's say this is the body paragraph after introduction. If you're writing your social history or past medical history, either over here or in the last part of the paragraph, depend upon totally importance, right? And it's sometime you need to split the things from the social histories. Some of the things can be written over here, and rest of the thing can be written over here, depending on importance. Let's say, but we will like not to make the case complicated at the moment. But in any case, if you're writing the social plus past medical history over here, no, Dr. Iram, we don't need to mention the dates with every visit. Anyhow, so is the social plus past medical history written over here or over here? So most of the time, like the personal history, okay, or the past medical history or the social history, it should be written in the present tense, either in the simple form or perfect continuous form, right? Depends. Let's say he's a smoker, is a present simple form, right? Or he has a history of, let's say, diabetes, it's again present simple form. He has had diabetes since 2004, it's your present continuous tense, right? And he has been a smoker, we can also write down, for example, uh, in this case, uh, throughout his life, he has been a smoker. Again, a form of tense that can be in the present perfect tense, right? Continuous form of the passive voice, perfect form of the passive voice, right? Anyhow, so this is clear to you. Like we can use the present tense over here, and rest of the body can use simple, past, or past perfect. Depend how would you write it down. But most of the time, we can be writing the rest of the body, starting from the initial visit and before the today visit, can be written in the simple past. And even the today visit. In today visit, either we can write it down simple form of the past tense, either we can write it down the present perfect tense. Depends on the history or the case. Either it could be present tense or either perfect form of the present tense, either it could be simple past, right? So these are the variation of tenses can be used. And in the body of the letter, as mentioned, that you can use the simple and past perfect tense. And why will it be using past perfect tense? Remember that when we have to differentiate two in the past, near and far past. In the near past, we use the simple form of the past tense, right? And the far past, we use the past perfect. Okay. So this is the usage of your tenses that we have discussed. Let's say we can just use that. or so this is the best example that just came in my mind. He had not been able to conceive for 5 months. You can see this is the perfect form of the tense. As a result, he was depressed. So this is past simple. So this is near past. Previously, he was having this is far past, like the thing that happened first, and later on this thing had happened. And the consequences of that thing. So we can write it down. This event in the past perfect and this event in the present past simple, right? Okay. Or we can also write it down. He had been on hypnotherapy. Consequently, he was able to quit smoking. So again, we can see that past perfect and past simple. So few examples that I had given to you. I hope that these had made your concern clear. If you still want to ask any question, please feel free to ask me. If there is no question, we'd like to move on toward the you can say next part, that is your sentences. So in OET writing, we do have three different type of sentences: simple, compound, and complex. These are the majorly used tenses in the OET writing. We can write in compound, complex as well. You can write also, yes, active and passive, right? Can be written. And the last sign of statements can be written with the conditional clauses. But majorly, we do use three sentences, sorry. So what we have in the simple sentence with subject, verb, and object. So let's say if you can see anything that is independent clause. For example, he is a smoker. Now this is an independent clause because this is a full sentence. He's a smoker. This sentence does not need anything to be completed. But let's say if I can write it down, although he is a smoker. Now you can see due to this although, it's not complete. Now this independent clause has now become the dependent one. So we need to add something over here, maybe to complete the sentence. So although he's smoker, he does not drink. As you can see, these things could be written in contrast, like smoker and drinker can be written in contrast, right? Although he's smoker, he does not drink. Both things are in the same form of tense. So now this is a basically dependent clause, and now this is independent clause, and this sentence is called as complex sentence. When we have the combination of dependent and independent clauses. So simple and complex. Okay. The rule for the complex sentence is when we have the although clause or the dependent clause in the first, we'll put comma. Let's say although he has been doing physiotherapy, let's say comma, his range of motion are still, stiffy. So you can see now, if we can draw this thing for you, this is again your independent clause, and that is your dependent clause. So if you use dependent clause first, so we have to put comma. But if I can flip this sentence, let's say his range of motion are still stiffy, although he is or has been doing physiotherapy. Now there is no comma. Again, two rules that we discuss in one go so that you have an idea, but it's again a complex sentence with two rules. Now we have a compound sentence. Let's say he is a smoker and drinker. Now with the help of the conjunction, we can combine two sentences together. Let's say what are the conjunction? And, but, so, yet, nor, and so on. So with the help of conjunction, we can write it down two things together, right? So we can use compound sentence, and compound sentences are being preferred when we have to summarize some things. Okay, we can write it down. Complex sentences are also preferred when we have to summarize something, right? Anyhow, these are the variety of sentences can be used. But remember, while compounding the sentence, make to have clarity. Like group the same information together, such as smoker and drinker. Now this is same information. We cannot say he is a smoker but not a cricketer. This is grammatically right but logically wrong, right? So three simple sentences that we can discuss as being mostly used sentences and widely used sentences. So in complex sentences, we have three different major clauses that you should use in order to write them. Then the clause of contrast. When we have to avoid but again and again, we can use the clause of contrast. For example, as we mentioned with although, we can also use the clauses with different, like even though, the same idea, despite, in spite of, while, whereas, and so on. So we must use the uh, clause of contrast by other than repeating but with but. But is informal is not wrong. You can use it, but it's informal. Followed by the clause of purpose. In purpose clause, we combine two things in a consequences of each other. Right? For example, in order to lose his weight, गलम निकला यार. Okay, sorry for that. Basically, you can see in order to lose his weight, right? He was advised to do exercise. So it can be written in this way. He was advised to do exercise. He was advised to do exercise so that he can lose his weight. Right? Okay. So this is the purpose clauses that can be used. Okay. Is it clear to you? Now the last clause is your clause of reason. Now in clause of reason, the first thing over here is your like the consequences of again the other thing. For example, due to the fact he was overweight, he was advised to lose his he was advised to do exercise. Now you can see that this is the reason clause. We can also write down because he was overweight, he was advised to do exercise, and so on. So there are a variety of things can be written either in the clause of reason or either written in the clause of purpose, right? So I hope these things are clear to you. If you want to ask any question, please feel free to ask me. Okay. So moving on toward the relative clause, we do use the relative clauses specifically in the introduction. For example, I can just give you, I am writing to refer, let's say Mr. XYZ, a 48-year-old accountant, let's say, comma, whose features are suggestive of diabetes mellitus, comma, for further management, right? Full stop. Now you can see over here, this thing is we call a positive noun, is the range of grammar. We can use the age and profession if it's relevant over here. And this is the relative clause. Now, this sentence is the relative clause, like who clause. Who clause is the relative clause. We can use the he as well. That can relate. I'm writing to refer Mr. X, a 48-year-old man, accountant, full stop. His features are suggestive of, let's say. Yeah, he has features suggestive of. He can use as he has relative clause as well. Anyhow, a clause that can relate with the previous sentence is called as the relative clause. Now we have two types of relative clause, either defining and non-defining. In this sentence, it was non-defining. So when we have non-defining clause, we'll put comma over here and over here. But when we have defining clause, there is no comma. What is defining clause? Let's say I'm writing to refer Mr. X, a 48-year-old accountant who has features suggestive of diabetes mellitus, let's say, full stop. I would appreciate if you could further manage this case. Now you can see over here, and in this case, this was typically the defining clause. Like defining clause means if I can remove this sentence from here, this whole sentence will lose its meaning. That's why it's defining clause. If it's a defining clause, like with full stop, we can not put any comma over here. So a rule of grammar has been discussed, right? So anything else that you want to discuss at the moment? And more importantly, last we can see that the salutation, Dr. Alex, let's say Mohan. This is also the right salutation that you can use, or we can also use in this way, Dr. Alex Mohan, without with or without dot. But use one formality, right? Use just one formality. doctor, Mr., and so on. Similarly, we use MS title with the we can say girl who want to hide her status, marital status, if she's married, or if she is under a like sorry, if you want to hide her marital status, we can use MS. MS. And if the person is under 18 for boys, okay, we can use the first name, and same for girls, right? More important, lastly, in the salutation part, in case if you are writing a discharge letter and to the new person, new recipient, so after writing regarding, let's say Mr. Alex Mohan or the age, we can write it down the address of the patient, not mention the heading, just write down the address of the patient, right? In case if it's a home referral, if the healthcare professional is going to pay a home visit, and if healthcare professional, if the healthcare professional is new, like he's going to see the patient for first time, right? Is it there? So, and most lastly, uh, you can see if the name of the doctor or इसको छोड़ के फिलहाल यहाँ से, or the recipient, either nurse, is not given, we can close the letter with yours faithfully, right? Similarly, up above, if you're writing the name of the doctor, dear Doctor Mohan, if you put comma over here, you will put comma over yours sincerely over here as well. But if there is no comma over here, so no comma over here as well, okay? इसको बाहर लेकर भी, okay? So, any question that you want to ask in this part? So, let's say it's valid for you.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Then we will write down the name of a
First name. Let's say if you are writing a letter and the patient is under 18, so we can write down the first name. If the patient name is Amina Ahmed, we can just write down Amina. Let's say if you're writing to refer maybe James Brown, and the name should be written as James, because previously they used to write master with the first name, but now they have not been following this formality. They just use the first name,
and
right?
if the age is above 18, then we just write down Mr. or Mrs.
Sorry, sir.
If the age is above 18, then we'll just write Mr. or
Mr. and
Mrs.
second name.
Mr. and second name.
Yes. Even those students will be quite confused. Let's say if you can see that.
Sir, can I
If you,
ask you something?
sure, yes, ma'am. Just give me a moment. If you can see that the
Uh,
name, just give me a moment, please. If you can see the name of the patient is let's say Aisha Ahmed, right? So Mrs. Aisha Ahmed. So we can just write on Mrs. Ahmed. In case,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, ma'am, you can ask the question. What you're asking?
yes, sir. I was asking, as we are start our writing task, can we are writing Dr. Alex, for example, at General Hospital, psychologist, and we should not put comma in all over the introduction, or can we put comma
In the address part,
all over the introduction part, sir?
introduction.
Dr. Alex, the psychologist in the
Let's say
United
this is
Hospital,
I'll
blah
mention
blah.
that. Let's say Dr. Alex. This is the name.
Yes,
The psychologist.
yes,
Let's say blah blah hospital. Let's say Newtown Hospital, Newtown. There is no comma.
yes, sir.
And let's say regarding patient name, comma, age, dear doctor,
Okay.
I mentioned that, let's say you can put comma over here. It's your choice. But in that case, you have to put comma after your sincerely or faithfully.
At yours. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
And in case we did not put comma at the dear doctor, and we have not put comma at the yours, and there is no need to put
Yes.
apostrophe s.
There is no apostrophe. There is no apostrophe over here. It should be written like that,
Okay, sir.
yours,
Mm.
with Y capital and S in the lowercase.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.